Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe.
Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe.
Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Radha Madhava Ashtasakis ki Jai.
Jai,
और निताई की जय, श्री
Jai,
प्रभुपाद की जय.
Jai.
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
Narayanam Namaskritya,
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
Naram Chaiva Narottamam,
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam,
ततो जयमुदीरयेत्.
Tato Jayamudiraye,
नष्टप्रायेष्व भद्रेषु
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu,
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya,
भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke,
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
1 second, let me turn on the video. I forgot to turn on the video. Zoom. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं. वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च. हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तु ते. तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. शौनक उवाच
Saunaka Uvacha,
सूत सूत महाभागा
Suta
Suta
Sutta
Sutta
Mahabhaga,
Mahabhaga
वदनो वदतां वरा.
Vadano
Vadano
Vadatambara,
Vadatambara
कथां भागवतीं पुण्यां
Katham
Katam Bhagavatam
Bhagavatim
Punyam
Punyam,
यदाह भगवान् शुकः.
Yadaha
Yadatha
Bhagavan
Bhagavan
Chukaha.
Shukaha.
Please chant Mataji and Prabhus.
Saunaka Uvacha,
Shaunaka
Shaunaka Uvacha
Suta Sutta Mahabhaga,
Sutta
Shruta Shruta Mahabhaga
Mahabhaga
Vadano Vadatambara,
Vadano
Vadatnotam
Vadatamara
Vatatambara
Katham Bhagavatim Punyam,
Katam Bhagavatim
Bhagavatim
Punyam
Punyam
Yadha Bhagavan Chukaha.
Yad Aha Bhagavan
Bhagavan
Shukaha.
Chukaha.
Shaunaka Uvacha.
Shaunaka uvacha.
Shuta Mahabhaga.
Shuta Mahabhaga.
Vadano Vadatambhara.
Vadano
Vadano
Vadatam
Vadatamvara.
Vada.
Katham Bhagavatam Punyam.
Katham
Katham Bhagavatim
Bhagavatim
Punyam.
Punyam.
Ya Ada Aha Bhagavan Chukaha.
Yada
Yada
Bhagavan
Bhagavan
Shuka.
Chukaha.
शौनक उवाच
Shaunaka
Shaunaka
uvacha.
Uvacha.
सूत सूत महाभाग
Shuta Mahabhaga.
वदनो वदतां वर
Vadano
Vadano
Vadatambhara.
Vadatamvara.
कथां भागवतीं पुण्यां
Katham
Katham
Bhagavatim
Bhagavatim
Punyam.
Punyam.
यद्याः भगवान् शुकः
Yada
Yadaha Bhagavan
Bhagavan Chukaha.
Chukaha.
Shaunaka Uvacha said, Suta, O Suta Goswami, Mahabhaga, the most fortunate, Vada, please speak, Naha unto us, Vadatam of those who can speak, Vara respected, Katham message, Bhagavatim of the Bhagavatam, Punyam pious, Yat which Aha said, Bhagavan greatly powerful, Shukaha Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shaunaka said, O Suta Goswami, you are the most fortunate and respected of all those who can speak and recite. Please relate the pious message of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by the great and powerful sage Shukadeva Goswami. Okay. Suta Goswami is twice addressed herein by Shaunaka Goswami out of great joy because he and the members of the assembly were eager to hear the text of Bhagavatam uttered by Shukadeva Goswami. They were not interested in hearing it from a bogus person who would interpret in his own way to suit his own purpose. Generally, the so-called Bhagavatam reciters are either professional readers or so-called learned impersonalists who cannot enter into the transcendental personal activities of the Supreme Person. Such impersonalists twist some meanings out of Bhagavatam to suit and support impersonalist views. And the professional readers at once go to the 10th canto to misexplain the most confidential part of the Lord's pastimes. Neither of these reciters are bona fide persons to recite Bhagavatam. Only one who is prepared to present Bhagavatam in the light of Shukadeva Goswami, and only those who are prepared to hear Shukadeva Goswami and his representative are bona fide participants in the transcendental discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is in the 4th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. The first 3 chapters were Shukadeva Goswami, Suta Goswami and the sages. Suta Goswami is listening to the inquiries of the sages. Sages asked several questions to Suta Goswami. So the first 3 chapters, they cover that. And then chapters 4 to 6, they cover Narada and Vyasa, the conversation between Narada and Vyasa and the background behind Narada's disappointment, and then what advice Narada gives to Vyasadeva. So this chapter is titled The Appearance of Sri Narada. So in the previous chapter, Suta Goswami, he described various incarnations. That is also an answer to one of the questions that the sages asked. So he describes several incarnations of Krishna, the Purusha avatars, the Leela avatars, Guna avatars, and Shakti Avesha avatars. Several things he describes, but then later he tells that Krishna is the source of all incarnations. He gives the Paribhasha Sutra of our tradition. Ete chamsha kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So after that, he also establishes Srimad Bhagavatam as the incarnation of Lord. And he also glorifies Srimad Bhagavatam in several verses. So the next thing he says is, O learned Brahmanas, when Shukadeva Goswami recited Bhagavatam in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard with rapt attention. And thus by his mercy, I learned Bhagavatam from the great powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it. He specifically used the words yathaditam yatamatihi. So he wants to explain Srimad Bhagavatam as he realized it. So after hearing this, Shaunaka Rishi, he becomes very happy. He's very appreciative of the way Suta Goswami is trying to explain Bhagavatam. So he wanted to congratulate Suta Goswami. He wanted to express his appreciation. In that purport, Srila Prabhupada says that there are 3 qualifications required for a congratulator. He should be the leader of the house, and he should be an elderly man, and he should be well versed in scriptures. So these are the 3 qualifications that Shaunaka Rishi possesses. So we can use this information when we do any program. If it's time to thank or express some gratitude, then we have to choose that person who's the leader of the house and who's an elderly man and who's well versed in scriptures to do that job. In that way, it is appropriate. And he's expressing this happiness that Suta Goswami is a realized person. The realization has several parts to it. Personal realization means it's not like, out of our own false ego or vanity, we try to explain a lot of things and we try to outdo the previous acharyas. That's not realization. Realization means we should have full confidence in the previous acharya, and at the same time we should understand and realize the subject matter so nicely that in any circumstance, in any particular circumstance, we should be able to apply it properly and we should be able to explain it properly. And then we should also maintain the original purpose of the text. What is the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam? Anybody? What is the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam?
Glorify the Lord.
Yes.
Mataji, glorifying the Lord devotees and remembering, the bad activities which are performed by the demonic people, so that we don't do that.
Yes. It's also to motivate us for transcendental loving service of the Lord, pure devotional service, and to help us go back to Godhead. So Bhagavatam is Amalam Puranam. It's completely free from all contamination, or it's free from any fruitive tendencies. If you do this, you'll get that. That's kind of Vedic literature. That's what Vedic literature promotes. But Bhagavatam is pure. And if one understands the purpose of Bhagavatam and then presents it to keep the purpose of Bhagavatam, that is also one part of realization. And then no obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. If we don't understand something properly, if we don't realize something properly, we may explain it in such a way that the original meaning is lost and we kind of made up our own meaning out of the subject matter. That is not realization. There are many topics in Bhagavatam which one may not have any realization of. So those topics, if we have to present, we should either present as it is, as Prabhupada said, without any interpretations. But otherwise, we can just stick to the topics that we can completely understand and get a lot of information and practiced a little bit. Those things we can do. But as long as we stick to what Prabhupada said, I think we'll be able to convey what we understood to um, the audience. So when people don't have any personal realization, like impersonalists, they try to twist their own meaning from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very hard to get anything out of Srimad Bhagavatam other than pure devotional service and personal Supreme Lord, because it's all about relationships of devotees and the Lord. But someone may try to get what they want out of it, some impersonal meaning. And then karmis may look for some material gain. If you read this chapter, you will get that. If you read that chapter, you'll get this, things like that. So this is about personal realization. And Suta Goswami had personal realization of Srimad Bhagavatam. So when a person like that speaks, we can understand and we can also implement it in our lives. And then there are some qualifications of Shaunaka also. Shaunaka is also very qualified because he could estimate the value of speaker. Sometimes if the audience is not very qualified, they may not look for the essence. They may look for some things like, he really sings well. That's why I'm going to attend his class. In Vrindavan, there are many many people who can sing well. They do kathas and they can bring out a lot of sentiments like that. So if we are not looking for the essence, we may also choose somebody who's not very advanced to hear from. So here Shaunaka Rishi is also very advanced now because he could recognize who's the perfect speaker. So when this kind of setting is there, when the speaker is perfect, when the listener is perfect, then the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam will be conveyed properly. So now Shaunaka, he is asking Suta Goswami, in what period and at what place was this first begun? And why was this taken up? From where did Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, the great sage, get the inspiration to compile this literature? So, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada gives the description of Shukadeva Goswami. And later on in other verses, even Shaunaka Rishi also continues with the description of Shukadeva Goswami. This is another explanation of the speaker, the qualifications of speaker. So this is the order. First, Shukadeva Goswami spoke Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, and then Suta Goswami was in the audience, and then Suta Goswami spoke to the sages at Naimisharanya. So Suta Goswami was the speaker second time. The first time the speaker was Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami, he's a transcendental personality, but he appeared like a dumb man. He didn't look like he's eloquent or scholarly or anything. He looked like a dumb person. So materialists, when they look at something spiritual, it's like their attention and their attraction won't be evoked. Same thing, when they look at Shukadeva Goswami, they would not have realized his potency. So spiritualists, they are very alert to whatever is required for their spiritual advancement. Whereas materialists, they're very, very alert to whatever can give them sense gratification. So this is the difference. So whatever is required for sense gratification, spiritualists, they're not alert to it. They're asleep to it. Whereas materialists, they are asleep to whatever is required to spiritual elevation. So which verse in Bhagavad Gita says this? Does anyone remember? It's about night and day. That's one hint.
Yanisha.
Yes. Yeah. Can you tell the whole thing, Mataji?
I'm not very like Yanisha Sarva Bhutani Anisha Pashyatu. I'm not able to get it, Mataji.
Okay, no problem. Anyone else wants to do? Maybe Sevanandini Mataji can say it.
Yes, he came and went back there thinking someone is saying.
Oh yeah, Prabhu, you are there too. You can tell.
He's coming, let her speak. He came here to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mataji, can I say Mataji?
Yes.
या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागृति संयमी यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनिः.
Okay. So whatever is night for the self-realized soul is daytime for the materialist. Whatever is night for the materialist is the time of awakening for the self-realized soul. This is what it actually means. It means that whatever activities that materialists take pleasure in, that's not what a spiritualist takes pleasure in. They take pleasure in going to bars, they take pleasure in accumulating material things and so on, many things. But a spiritualist is not interested in that. We go to the temple, we want to serve the Lord, and they are not interested in that. They think, what is this? You're crazy. So this is how it is. So they could not realize the glory of Shukadeva Goswami. So Shukadeva Goswami, he's beyond the conception of even bodily discrimination. Like he doesn't discriminate men from women. He was walking through a forest when he was 16 years old. He was fully developed. His body is completely grown, but he never wore any clothes. He was walking through that forest, and some girls were taking bath uh, in a lake or pond. And then when they saw Shukadeva Goswami, they didn't mind because they know that this person is not into man and woman discrimination. He's not on the material platform. He's a liberated soul. But then behind him, Vyasadeva was coming. Vyasadeva was much older, but still, as soon as they realized that Vyasadeva might pass by, they immediately covered their bodies. So this is it. Person who's learned, a learned sage, he looks at a brahmana, a chandala, a dog, or a cow with spiritual vision. He's not looking at the body and discriminating. And Shukadeva Goswami, he perfected this kind of spiritual vision. That's why no one would mind him going by. They don't have to be too careful. But then Vyasadeva, he's in Grihasthashram, and it is required to discriminate between man and women in Grihasthashram. And another thing about Shukadeva Goswami is because he appeared like a dumb man, people didn't realize that they can hear from him. So in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says that we should not just judge a sadhu by his looks. We should hear from a sadhu, and that's how we can make advancement. Not just looking at him, Shukadeva Goswami, he could speak on the transcendental activities of the Lord. And this is not something that ordinary people would want to hear anyways, but they just could not even fathom that he can speak so well on the pastimes of the Lord, and he's so realized and liberated. And then Shukadeva Goswami, he doesn't stay in any place, especially at the place of a grihastha, more than half an hour. That's exactly the time it takes to milk a cow. He doesn't stay too long in the houses of householders. He only went to the householders so that householders may develop some detachment by giving him some alms. So he's not there to enjoy what householders have to offer. Sometimes householders may have very comfortable homes, and they can be very rich, and they may be able to provide a lot of comforts to a sannyasi. But a sannyasi is not interested in the material benefits he may get from a householder. The only reason why a sannyasi visits householder is to elevate them. It's not for his own material pleasure. So this is about Shukadeva Goswami. These are the qualifications of Shukadeva Goswami. Shaunak also mentions some of the qualifications, and then he talks about Maharaja Parikshit. Maharaja Parikshit was the listener there. So this chapter mostly it was about qualifications of speakers and listeners. And then he's telling about Maharaja Parikshit. Shaunaka is asking, he was a very great emperor. He possessed all opulences. And then he's so exalted that he was even increasing the prestige of Pandu dynasty. So why did he give up everything to sit down at the bank of Ganges? He was quite a young man, he's not old. As soon as he was at an age where he can take care of the kingly duties, Pandavas retired and they went away. He took up the job of the king, and he was a young man, and he had everything anybody would want. And there was no difficulty for him. Sometimes, you may have a big kingdom, but if it is very difficult to manage it, then you may want to give it up. So Shaunaka is addressing that. He doesn't have a problem in management. Everybody was giving taxes because he's so powerful and chivalrous. So this is the thing. If a king is very powerful, then there is no disobedience. People won't disobey the king. And even enemies would come and bow down to him, and they surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. Means they accept him as the emperor. And there was enough milk, enough grains, enough metals, all the rivers and mountains, they were full of potency. So a king maybe is powerful, he maybe is young and all that, but then if the resources are not there, then the king won't be able to rule the kingdom. So Shaunaka is telling that also. Everything was in full. Milk, grains, metals, everything was in full. So materially, everything was satisfactory. So why did he untimely, he gave up everything, and he went and sat at the river Ganges? Why did he do that? And then he says he was an ideal king because he was the devotee of the Lord. So devotees of the Lord, they acquire all good qualities just by their practice of devotional service. Just by chanting attentively, our heart will be cleansed of all the anarthas we may have, and we develop all good qualities. Vidya Vadhu Jivanam. Chanting is the one that gives rise to that Vidya, which is full of good qualities. So he was full of good qualities. There is no problem. And he was not attached also to all these worldly opulences and possessions that are at his disposal. He wasn't attached. He never thought that those are for him. He only was doing a duty of a king. As a devotee of the Lord, he was completely detached. And he was not even selfishly interested. He doesn't have either self-centeredness or self-extended self-centeredness. And then his only interest was to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by doing his duties properly. And then under his administration, everybody had everything in full. They could, eat sumptuously, and their heart was content. When people are satisfied like this with food and shelter, and they're also following prescribed duties, at that time there won't be any disturbance. So this is so important, such nice shiksha for the kings. If the administration of any country, if they can provide like this, and then they encourage the citizens to follow the prescribed rules and to help them advance spiritually, there won't be any disturbance. Everyone was happy during his reign. So he's asking, why did he retire untimely? And then he also asked, how could Shukadeva Goswami go to Hastinapura, and how could he meet Parikshit Maharaj? Everybody was actually throwing stones, like people who didn't know who he was. It's hard to get entrance to see a king, right? So how could he do that? And then after that, Shaunaka, he glorifies Suta Goswami again. He says that you are expert in the meaning of everything, in the meaning of all subjects, except some portion of Vedas. You are expert in the Puranas. So you can clearly explain answers to all of us. The questions that we have put for you, you can explain the answers for all of us. So in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says that the difference between Vedas and Puranas is like difference between Brahmana and Parivrajaka. So Brahmanas, they are expert in reciting all these Vedic mantras. Reciting Vedic mantras is very difficult. It takes a lot of training. People have to be trained for years to be able to recite it properly. If someone doesn't recite it properly, it could mean something totally different also. There is one example in Srimad Bhagavatam where Twashta was doing this sacrifice, and then he was saying this word Indra Shatru in a different way. So Vritrasura was born, who was not a demon but a devotee. He looked like a demon, but his disposition was devotional because of that. So it's very important to practice systematically the accent, the meter, and everything. So Brahmanas, they're meant for that. They're meant for administering the Vedic rites. So these Brahmanas, they are not more important than the Parivrajakacharyas. Parivrajakacharyas, they may not know the exact pronunciation of the Vedic literature, but they know the import of the Vedic literatures. They know Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam is no less than Vedic mantras. It is the ripened fruit of all the Vedas. So Shukadeva Goswami is one of such Parivrajakacharyas. He's absorbed in the studies of Bhagavatam. Although he's already realized, he is absorbed in glorifying the Lord. So this is what proves that it's not mundane. The glorification of the Lord is not mundane. All these liberated souls, they are not interested in anything. So if they are interested in this one thing, that means that this is not material, because they are not interested in anything material. And he also realized it. He also realized that knowledge. Suta Goswami, he may not be expert in Vedic mantras, and metric pronunciation, but he also is a self-realized soul. Realization is more important than parrot-like chanting. So now, after all this, Suta Goswami, he starts speaking. He says that once upon a time, he, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution in the waters of the Saraswati and sat alone to concentrate. So this river Saraswati is said to be flowing in Badrikashram in Himalayas. And then there is a place called Shamya Prasa in Badrikashram. That's where Vyasadeva resides. It is mentioned that all these perfected beings, they reside in that place called Kalapa, where even Kalki would take birth. So he's meditating, he's thinking about how he can help the people of Kali, because he saw so many anomalies in Kali. Kali Yuga is not normal. It has so many defects, and he could see the present and future. He's Trikalagna. He can see past, present, and future, and he can see how people of Kali Yuga, they're so much interested in matter. They're not interested in being spiritual. They're so much interested in matter. So I heard His Holiness Hanmat Prashak Swami once, he said, in olden times when they were preaching in US and not so much was happening, one German devotee, he was he was saying, like, in Germany we can do so much. I think I should come and help you learn some preaching. So he comes and he visits US, and then when he came, he saw the people here, and he's like, oh my gosh, people are really convinced that they can make it in the material world here. So they really are not interested in any spirituality, most of them. Same thing Srila Prabhupada wrote after he landed in Boston, like he arrived at Boston. He said, people are engrossed in the modes of passion and ignorance. How am I going to make them understand this message of yours? So this is how the people of age of Kali are. They are not interested in spiritual topics. They are only interested in matter. And he could also see, Vyasadev could see that uh, the people of Kali are faithless, and their duration of life is very less. And their memory is also very less. And another thing that he saw is they are very impatient because of the lack of goodness. So when a person doesn't have enough goodness, there is no patience. Passionate people, they're like, I want this, I want that, let me go do this, go do that. If it doesn't work, let me do something else. So this continuous agitation, and no peace, no steadiness, and no patience. So this is the trademark of Kali Yuga. And then the land doesn't produce food grains in the same proportion as it used to produce before. The land is not that fertile anymore because of the sinful activities that people commit in Kali Yuga. The land doesn't want to produce. The land says, Bhumi says that I can even bear the weight of the mountains, but I cannot bear the weight of the sinful people. And it doesn't produce. Same thing happened when King Vena was ruling. The earth refused to produce anything. So same thing is happening now. In order to produce, we have to use all these chemicals because the land doesn't want to produce, and we are forcing the land to produce. That's why the quality of the vegetables and fruits is not as it was before. And all living beings, they don't have nourishing food because of that. They don't have good milk, they don't have nourishing food, and naturally the duration of life will be reduced, and the memory will be short, and intelligence is meager. And then the mutual dealings will be full of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is so rampant. You just cannot trust anybody. That's how it has become. And then the great sage Vyasadeva, he thought about it. He's just like an astrologer who can see the fate of a person, and then he's like also like an astronomer who can see the eclipses. So liberated souls, they can see through the scriptures and foretell what is the future of mankind. He has that sharp spiritual vision. But they're also devotees of the Lord. They're also well-wishers of the entire humanity. Not like all these public leaders, they are only interested in their selfish endeavors. They make it look like they are doing something for the public, but actually they are only interested in their selfish interest. But a devotee of the Lord is not like that. They think about the welfare of everybody involved. Whenever they do any activity, they think about, is this beneficial for everybody who's involved in that activity. So I kind of witnessed some of very exalted devotees, how they make decisions. When they make decisions, they think about, is it for the welfare of this person that I'm doing this? Or is it just to satisfy someone's false ego or my false ego, or satisfy my intelligence, things like that. They are beyond that. They are the genuine well-wishers of the humankind. So example for that is Vyasadeva also, and Narada, Madhva, Chaitanya, Rupa, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. That's what Prabhupada mentions in the purport. All these people, they are the greatest philanthropists. And these are the transcendentalists who represent the mission of the Lord, represent the mission of saving the fallen souls. So he was thinking like that, Vyasadeva, and then he thought, okay, I think the Vedic rituals and Vedic sacrifices will help people while they perform their occupations. They'll get purified while they perform their occupations. These are necessary for purification of general masses. Because this Kali Yuga memory is so short, one person cannot really teach the entire Veda. Vedas were all one before. So Vyasadeva thinks like that, and for the benefit of humankind, for the welfare of everybody, he divides the Veda into 4 parts. And then he makes 4 different people in charge of those Vedas. Paila Rishi becomes in charge of the Rig Veda, professor of Rig Veda. Jaimini becomes the professor of Sama Veda. Vaishampayana, the professor of Yajurveda. And Angira becomes the professor of Atharva Veda. And then Suta Goswami's father, Roma Harshana, he's the one who's the professor of Puranas and historical records. So all these people, they learned it and they passed it down in disciplic succession. And then Vyasadeva thought, I am giving this for the welfare of everybody. But then the Vedic literature was only learned by the Brahmanas before. So it's not by birth, Brahmana doesn't mean by birth, but by qualification. One has to be firmly established in the mode of goodness to be able to understand anything from the Vedic literature. So in Satya Yuga, everybody used to be in the mode of goodness. So everyone could read and understand. But then in Kali Yuga, we can hardly find anybody with Brahminical qualifications. It's very, very rare. So by birth, it only happens if parents did the Garbhadan Samskar properly, and they can attract that kind of soul like they are. Otherwise, just like that, a Brahmana won't take birth in a Brahmana family without Garbhadan Samskar. So Brahmanas are not there in Kali Yuga. It's all Brahma Bandhus and Vaishyas and Shudras, and Kshatriyas also very rarely exist, but they do exist in a small proportion. So then he thought, whatever work I've done, it's not applicable to most part of the humanity, most part of Kali Yuga population. So then he wrote Mahabharata so that everybody can take benefit of reading it. In the Mahabharata, there is Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of all the Vedas. That's how he thought he can benefit everybody. But then after writing all this also, he was very dissatisfied. He worked for the welfare of everybody. He followed strict vows and he gave from the disciplic succession whatever import that he needs to give. But still, he was feeling dissatisfied. So he was thinking, what is the reason why I'm feeling dissatisfied? So then he got a hint. He was thinking, maybe because I didn't specifically point out devotional service. I didn't specifically say this is the process. That's why I might be feeling a little dissatisfied. So just when he was regretting like that, Narada Muni walks in. So Narada Muni, when he walked in, Vyasadeva expresses his dissatisfaction. He expresses that maybe because I didn't directly preach about Krishna, I am dissatisfied. So one may feel that in the modern context, like if we are just promoting vegetarianism or supporting animal rights, not really talking about Krishna, it may not give much satisfaction. So same thing Narada Muni said. he comes and confirms Vyasadeva's suspicion. Like, you're right. That's why you're feeling dissatisfied. Usually, people are just happy with material benefits. They want to feel like they are religious, but then only for material benefit. Once they get whatever benefit they are supposed to get, they are happy. They don't want to execute any austerities. And then you have encouraged them in that selfish attitude. So people, they do this puja, that puja to get something, prosperity, wealth, health, like that, and they're happy with that. They don't want to get out of human life and all those things. They don't think about that. And with Vedic rituals, there is every chance that they'll just stop there. They may not understand the real purpose, although the real purpose of Vedas is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They may not be able to get there. That's why you're unhappy. So I heard this example of Jesus Christ, which relates to this. Jesus Christ, he gave about what they call it as mass to people. In that, they offer bread and wine on the altar, and then they take that. But then later on, Jesus Christ, he wrote in one of the letters that I gave this process so that they learn how to offer, but then they made it into a lusty affair, with so many good cakes and lots of wine. So this is how people adopt to the process of religion. They distort it to satisfy their material desires, and they suffer because of that. So this is what Narada Muni tells Vyasadeva. So these Vedic rituals, ultimately he thought by doing that they'll be purified, but it's a long process and people may take long detours and it may take a while for them to come back onto track. So now Narada Muni, he understands that, and before he actually composes Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva understands that, and before he actually composes Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni also gives his own personal example, he talks about his own realization of devotional service, and he talks about his preaching. So Vyasadeva here said from Narada Muni. That's all I have for today. We'll just open up for comments and questions. Any comments or realizations about how in general people engage in religion for, sense gratification?
I have a question, Mataji. I joined a little late. I was in another class. Kali Yuga, even at the very beginning, is progressing so heavily as we see it. It almost seems unthinkable.
Yes.
How, already it looks so bad. And the number of years left seems like such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
How is it even going to sustain itself is my question.
I think because of Srila Prabhupada, it may sustain. I have the same question, honestly, I get so dissatisfied sometimes to live in Kali.
You were talking about hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is like so rampant, already.
Yes. Yeah, it's very hard to find an honest person. That's why it's such a relief when you see all these sannyasis and pure devotees who have nothing else but your welfare in their mind. It's like fresh rain when you are starving from, when you are so thirsty that you didn't even have any water. Their presence is like fresh rain. So just taking shelter of those personalities and constantly being in association of Srila Prabhupada will help us deal with it, I think. I don't know where it goes. Kali Yuga. Actually, Canto 12 talks a lot about how it will be in Kali Yuga. The kings will be just like plunderers. They impose so many taxes on people that they don't even want to live in cities or villages or under the jurisdiction of any king or authority. They just run away to caves to be able to live peacefully, at least. So this is where it will get to. And the people, like people of Kali Yuga, they become so degraded that nothing can change them. That's when Kalki comes and just gets rid of all these people and starts Satya Yuga with just a few people, sages and self-realized persons.
I wouldn't want to be around in current Kali Yuga, let alone future Kali Yuga.
Yeah, that's an impetus to really practice well and go back
Exactly.
to
Yes.
God.
Super impetus, Yeah. And I mean, already it's hard being like an employee, in a private corporation. It says I think in the Bhagavatam that the employees will be like suck their life out of them, pretty much treated like slaves,
Yes, yes. I see that these IT companies, they take so much out of a person. Uh, they don't have any, time. Whenever there is a problem, you should get up in the middle of the night, or whenever you have offshore teams, you have to work with offshore teams and also work here with the clients. This IT consulting is very bad. So Gopi was doing a course on labor, history of labor, in her undergrad, and then she read all these labor laws, and then she concluded that in the current age, the most exploited labor is the white collar labor, the IT professionals.
Mhm.
They work so much, like not.
After that, also they are not satisfied.
Yeah, that's the nature of material masters.
But Sundari Radhika Mataji, the future as depicted in the Bhagavatam, it makes today's world look like a charm.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, at least we can live in a house in a city.
Right. I mean, especially even the labor is depicted, in the future, and the labor, they say the corporation will pretty much own you. You will not have time for anything else. You're like pretty much like a jailer working,
Yes.
or a jailbird working. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. But one good thing in Kali Yuga is the process for self-realization is not as difficult as it is in other ages. Just chanting the holy name is the process, and that we can do anytime and anywhere. There are no rules or restrictions, and it doesn't need any capital, doesn't need any setup or arrangements. Just chanting the holy name. Um, that's the benediction in Kali Yuga.
But will it even be possible as it progresses, Mataji? I'm talking about like the severe Kali Yuga, at the tail end of it. Will there be even capacity to chant the holy name?
Maybe not. I think that's when Krishna ends it. Even Srila Prabhupada's movement or Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's golden streak, I think, is for 10,000 years, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the next 10,000 years, probably it's possible, and we have association of devotees, and the process is flourishing. But after that, I don't know what happens.
Impetus is right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, actually, Mataji, just wanted to say one thing as you're discussing. Actually, we don't realize the importance of chanting. And I was mentioning, as you were mentioning, right, they suck you out very much. And after that, they are not at all satisfied. So why not serve the eternal Master Krishna? And also, Prabhupada, I was reading, and when Prabhupada was in the house of Sally Agarwal in Butler, So she was mentioning there that when I never when I she was busy, she had two kids and she was doing some other things, and her husband will leave at around 7:30 or 7:45 in the morning, so she'll have very less time to interact with Prabhupada. So she said, but he was never bored, because he was if she's not talking to him, then he'll always be chanting Hare Krishna, like that. And I was so inspired just to hear that. I mean, he never get bored. Anything. If he doesn't talk, he just chant. He's not ever satisfied, like that. So inspiring to read about Prabhupada.
Yes, yes. He's never dissatisfied, right? In any situation he is in, he's never dissatisfied. That's the quality of a devotee and a Brahmana. One should be always satisfied with whatever situation they are put in. Satisfaction is actually the perfection of spiritual realization, spiritual practice also. If we are constantly dissatisfied, then we are not in the mode of goodness. We are hankering for this, that, and just going around without any satisfaction. That's a good point, Mataji.
And there is one statement also where it says that in the spiritual life, even dream is a reality, but in the material life, even the reality is a dream. I just really like that point.
Yeah, yeah. Dreams are reality, Geetamala Mataji.
Yes, spiritual dreams, perhaps. Yes.
Yeah.
Mataji, your example of IT companies reminded me of a couple of incidents I've seen where employees are smart enough to milk these companies equally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've seen like where, they are logged in working, but guess what? There are Six Flags.
Sorry, Prabhu. What did
Yeah,
you
so
say?
Six Flag is a water park.
Uh-huh.
So they are working, they are logged in, but they were physically present in a Six Flag.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I think, but the example exists both ways. So a trait of Kali Yuga is everyone is trying to exploit the other,
Yes.
with
Yes.
whatever means they have.
Hypocrisy, like I am your friend, but then actually, I am here only to exploit you. Thank you, Prabhu.
I like Padmalochani's statement, in the spiritual world, dream is a reality.
Not my statement. I have heard from one of the Prabhuji was giving the class. I really like that.
Reality is the
Yes,
dream.
true, so true. If we meditate on the Lord, and that one day we'll be able to, as Prabhupada always gives the example, a caterpillar that meditates on, and it's become butterfly one day. So similarly, if we meditate on our spiritual life, then we definitely get on there. But if you dream about material thing, then nothing is a reality. Whenever if you lie down and just for 2 minutes, and just you realize that someday you cannot wake up, and some people will be carrying your body, and that thing will definitely give us some realization. If you just lie down for 2 minutes, just not doing anything, just thinking about the one day will come, like we cannot, we will be that state, and somebody will come and okay, she or he is no more, like that.
Yeah.
So that gives real inspiration.
Yeah. And also, mostly when people are approaching old age or old, they feel that depression, like I've done so much and now I'm good for nothing and no one cares for me, which is mostly the case for most of the people. They feel like I wasted my life serving all these people and trying to work so hard for all these people. Men may think, I worked so hard to provide them. I worked so hard to give them all these assets. And women may think, I did so many things for them. I got them married, I raised their kids. I worked so hard. I had so many sleepless nights and standing all day long, cooking, cleaning. They may feel like it's all useless at the end of life. So the only way a person can avoid feeling like that is by engaging every activity for the service of the Lord and trying to, you know, give prasadam to the family and try to, you know, use whatever time we have in the service of Krishna, doing the duties for the pleasure of Krishna. Those are the things, if they learn early on, then they may not feel that dissatisfaction or disappointment. I saw that Pyari Mohan Prabhu and Jiva Mataji, they are such examples in that regard. You know, they are so detached and they have no regrets. They're always satisfied. You know, the few times that I met them, I could feel that they're always satisfied. They don't have any disappointment. Usually at their age, if a karmi person is around, they have their own disappointments. They're always thinking about some disappointment. But I saw both of them always enthusiastic about furthering Krishna consciousness mission. That's how devotees will be. If they properly executed devotional service their entire life, that's how the old age will be. Anything else anybody would like to share?
Yeah, Mataji, in the same line, this is Pranath Govinda, same line, right? When you get old and you are not remembering the Lord or not speaking about Lord or not connecting everyone to the Lord, then even your children would not like to get connected to you, to serve you. Rather, they are just for your money or their property or your bank balance or something like that, and they just want ki, when the time will come that everything will come to me and I'll be enjoying it. So sorry to say, but that's what the propensities are, because we are not guiding them or not teaching them, or even we are not properly taking shelter of the Lord. So everything remains is material, and there is a fight if we have a lot of kids and everyone is aspiring to get maximum share. Share in that. And vice versa is when you are old, even if you have same property, everything, but they will just come and listen from you, try to get words from you, and every word coming from your mouth will be kind of a guidance which they will like to give to sons or their grandchildren, and a lot of association people will be aspiring to. And when you leave your body, you will be surrounded by people, you know that they love me and they really care for me, and they don't expect anything from me. But vice versa, when you're dying, you will just have the consciousness that I don't know who will get what I'm leaving. It will be a lot of chaos. So
Yes.
that's
Yes, Prabhu, nice point. Very nice. Yeah, maybe we should we should advertise on that point, like let your kids become devotees. Because some parents, they don't want their kids to become devotees, right? And this is what happens if your kids are not devotees. But if they are devotees, they want to take care of you because that's the duty of a son.
Yes, Mataji. Parents should be very scared when their children is not devotee, because at old age, generally our body is weak. We don't have a lot of thinking power, willing power, or do anything. So that time, literally, anything can happen to us if our children are not in a serving mood, rather they are in exploiting mood. That we ask for something and they don't, they don't experience the bliss of service, rather than the experience of give me more, I want, rather than what I can give, if they expect what I can get. And that is the disease we all have. I have personally, of getting more and more and more, and literally the stuffs which we have is hardly being used. So rather than being a consumer, consume, and then mar is a Hindi word that, like literally you buy after consuming. If you go to these stores and anything, you see so many variety, these these production industry, they know that the tendency in people is to consume. Like right now, I'm standing outside looking 50 variety of cars. Do we really need? There are people who look square and they sit in a cube car. There are people who looks, so every mindset has created some more options, and people think, okay, I can use more and more and more. But that's like that's how we are. And Haribol Mataji, I'll not speak much. Jai Jai Prabhupada ki Jai.
Prabhu, this Mataji, can I make one comment? This reminded me, as Prabhuji is saying about the children, because I was hearing one of the class in the ISKCON Chapati temple, and I think most of us know Anand Vrindavan Prabhu. He was asking a question to Jayadvaita Maharaj. So he was saying in this city life, right, in Mumbai, like the place where if you do not provide your son, let's say if you have 3 sons, so if you do not provide them one house to stay, then they will be like, you have not completed your responsibility and so much, and society will pressurize you. Like that, he was asking the question, how to deal with this kind of situations. Or in the marriage life, where the wife asks you to go somewhere, or Paris or Malaysia. So Maharaj was speaking on that, see, your responsibility is to bring them up, and you are not a real father if you have not provided them the Krishna consciousness. Because what is the use of satisfying the lusty desires, right? It's not like that you have taken a contract where you are maintaining them, even they are big enough to maintain them. So like that, Maharaj gave, and Maharaj said that even in the material life also, your relationship with your wife is still there when you satisfy her desire of getting her or your children, getting to them Malaysia or Europe or any other place. He said that was a trend in Mumbai, where you have to get your family out of India to visit somewhere, and otherwise divorce. They will not speak to you like that. Some Maharaj is giving, that is useless. He said no, just say I cannot maintain, that's it. If they want to say anything, say, but it's not good. If you are not a devotee, then what is the point even providing you anything like that? So I really liked, I connected that, I was hearing. So
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
And
Thank you.
to Pranath Govind's comments on consumerism, today's marketing is making you want something you don't need.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, very nice examples of fruitive tendencies and how they are not very beneficial for the community in general. So thank you, everybody. It's 9:08, so we'll stop here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa
Kripa sindhubhaya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo cha.
Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Mataji. Hari Bol. Sundari Radhika Mataji ki jai. Hari Bol.
Prabhupada ki jai.